Oh, it's warming up again. All right, with the cops. You hear me over here? Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. All right, here we go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This narrow road has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This narrow road has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This narrow road has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This narrow road has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
What is the importance of Mad Pride to the Vermont community?
Oh, it's so important because it gives us the ability to be able to speak our voice and to say what's really on our hearts. A lot of times our voices are silenced, and this gives us the opportunity to be able to do that, to speak out loud. This is my second year doing it, and what it gives to the community is a sense that there are people who really care about what we go through. I'm a psych survivor myself, so when I got into the fold, I really felt like I belonged to something. That I wasn't being driven by a system. I wasn't being told I need to take medications and you know, be locked away somewhere. So this event, this movement gives us the opportunity to feel free, to feel like we belong. So I really think Will the Wife really put us together and bringing people together, and it's great to see people, and I'm happy about that. Whenever there's change, there's always going to be issues. I think we're fighting a good fight. It's going to take some time for people to kind of switch or change clothes or switch gears. So I think over time that everybody will eventually get it, you know. You don't have to be forced to take medication. You don't have to be forced to deal with the system of what they say. So this gives us the opportunity to be able to be free, speak our freedom, speak our truth, and love what we do and love who we are, no matter how rough the day is.
The things about me that I consider to be my madness, or what makes me, you know, mentally or emotionally not fit into the narrow definitions of normal, is not something that I initially learned to celebrate or to value. And so the purpose of this event and just the idea of Mad Pride is that we can love ourselves and find strength and value and meaning and purpose in who we are. And we can find community too, which has been essential for me. We just need to keep showing up here, and it's great, you know, to get the word out and let people know.
I'm so honored to be here for Mad Pride 2024. As a prison abolitionist, we've seen time and time again folks that have mental health struggles or diagnoses frequently end up in prison because of the lack of supports in community. So this is a very touching moment for us, and means so much to our movement to be able to show that interconnection, because all our liberation is connected. And with my own lived experience with mental health struggles, it just, on a personal note, has been very heartwarming to be here and hear the stories of survivors.
As Mad Freedom Advocate begins to announce and implement their plans, I am confident that you will share my unequivocal optimism for the future of peer support in the state of Vermont under their leadership. The second reason is a new model for coordination and collaboration of comprehensive mental health services is being implemented by selected designated agencies, DAs here in the state, and DMH, called CCBHC, I never get that right, which here in Vermont, since we do things a little differently, stands for Certified Community-Based Integrated Health Centers. Under the CCBHC model, one of 9 core components of this whole model is peer support services. Right now, selected DAs and DMH are diligently working on CCHB to deepen, broaden, and expanding peer supports in the state, utilizing fairly substantial funding from the federal government. And lastly, right now, the Peer Workforce Development Initiative is continuing in the process of implementing peer support certification in the state of Vermont. The benefits of this are numerous. Number one, peer certification enhances the credibility and acceptance of peer support workers amongst traditional providers. Number two, it expands the type of employers that employ us peer support workers, including hospitals, prisons, schools, and homeless agencies. Number three, it expands the number of employers overall that will be looking for peer support workers. Number four, it will likely lead to higher compensation for peer workers across the state. Number five, it'll broaden training and career development opportunities. And lastly, and in this capitalistic society, perhaps the most important, is it will allow us to expand the services that are billable to Medicaid. So in summary, I would encourage you to talk to your family, friends, enemies, anybody with lived mental health experience to think about entering the peer workforce right now here in the state of Vermont. So right now I'd ask anybody out there who is currently a peer support worker or volunteer in peer support, raise your hand. Big round of applause to all the peer support workers who are helping people across this state deal with their mental health challenges. Thank you.
Thanks to Dan. Thank you all. Our next speaker is the executive director and founder of Inner Fire, Beatrice Birch.
Hello everybody, and thank you for this chance to share with you what Inner Fire is all about. It's about you claiming your own inner fire. And these posters here, medical choice is key to the purpose behind Inner Fire. Inner Fire is a proactive healing community where we help people wrestling with traumatic life experiences, which typically can lead to the world of addiction or to mental health, which I would refer to as soul health, but helping them to come slowly and carefully off their psychotropic medications, which disconnect us from the ability to think clearly, to have heartfelt feelings, and to do. And while doing that, help to strengthen them on a deeper soul spiritual level, so they can work with the issues that they sought support for initially, but ended up just being medicated. To share a little personal story, I had no idea I was going to be doing this, but I was working at a rehab in Vermont where a number of people at one time, over a period of a few days, came and approached me, knowing I was not from the system. I was working as an artistic therapist. And they stated, "I hate being medicated. Isn't there a choice?" And I'd worked in Europe where we had never medicated anyone. And when I returned to this country after 25 years, I was horrified to see how quickly people were being medicated and no one was listening to their story. Eventually, these people left this rehab, and within 2 years of their departure, 6 of them had chosen suicide. Now, I basically thought, I'm out of this. This is too real. I can't handle this. This is so wrong. But then I realized innocence is bliss, and I'm not innocent. They came to me. They made a statement. They asked a question. And I realized I had to take the best of my life experiences, and we simply offer a choice. What you do is your business. But if it's an alternative to suicide, you bet we will help you. And so it's a year program, and we look at the human being as we're all spiritual beings having an earth experience. We know that. But we're only being treated as genes, hereditary forces. We're victims to the medical system. And we simply, to reclaim your life, after recently somebody left Inner Fire who was in her 70s, came off 20 years of medication. That takes courage. And once you begin to taper, of course, all the issues that were not dealt with, the abuse or the neglect or whatever, they all rise up. That's not your mental health. That's these issues that are asking to be digested, work through me. So in the mornings, you work in the community. You're chopping wood. We're clearing a wood for a goat pasture. We're chopping down trees with an axe, 2-person sawing. You learn how to cook properly. No sugar in the diet. Gut friendly, so that when you leave, honey, you know how to cook. How you cook, it's your business, but you can't tell anyone you don't know how to cook. So it's very empowering. And in September, we start our 10th year. We've had people, believe it or not, from all over the world. And when an email from South Africa says, even knowing Inner Fire exists gives us hope, it's like, really? Don't you have anything like Inner Fire there? It's like, no. So we have people from different parts of the world. I've been asked to start Inner Fires in different parts of the world. And true confessions, it's not rocket science. We believe in everybody as a creator, though all of us have felt a victim, all of us. But we're not. And the challenges we go through are really opportunities for growth. They belong to us. And we need help in being able to claim them, work creatively with them, and move on. So that's what I have to share. We have a booth here. It's a year-long program. And to be honest, every night I go to bed and I'm full of awe and joy. There are incredibly courageous people out there who want to take their life in hand, despite how difficult it can be. So this is wonderful, and we have to speak out more and more. We're actually just becoming accredited so that we can help train psychiatrists how to help people come off the medications they've put them on. And a doctor from the West Coast contacted me. Her main clientele are suicidal psychiatrists. They're trapped in the same system. We have to admit the emperor is stark naked. We have to bring change. There's nothing wrong with the chemistry in your brain. And remember, we all have tear ducts. We gotta cry. We gotta cry. It's the soul breathing out. So keep talking, keep moving, and things will begin to really happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Beatrice. Next up, we have Aurora Calderon. Yeah, Aurora.
This mic is stronger than even any of these on this side for better.
Hello, people. Hello, people. Peace and blessings. All right, I am Aurora Calderon, spoken word artist, and I also make jewelry. I have a table over there, and I'm a chef by trade. So here we go. Psalms 39, 2 and 3. But as I stood there in silence, not even speaking of good things, the turmoil grew worse within me. The more I thought about it, the hotter I got, igniting a fire of words. You claimed a safe space, so I came in hoping you was really about what you was talking. I came in hot, honest, open, and transparent, giving you all of me, including the bits that were still tender and later bleeding. Entrusted you with the knowledge of the storms that plagued me, even let you know about my therapy. Laid my pain and grief before you because you said I was safe. Even made claim to love, friendship, and camaraderie. You lied to me. Using terms such as trauma-informed care, weaponizing what you were entrusted with to throw in my face and use against me. More like trauma-inducing environment where microaggressions are overlooked and excused. How can you say you see me when your lens is broken? Bringing nearly 10 years of work in therapy to die, to reawaken a deep mistrust in institutions. Brain screaming, Lord, deliver me, because all I could do was turn that shame back on me. I should have known better. 15 years in the foster care system is where that mistrust was birthed. Isolated from family and culture, this Nuyorican black girl was labeled aggressive and over-medicated for speaking up against the horrors that I endured. I learned to focus on that little light inside of me to make it burn brighter than everything I was going through. Being squished and squashed, feeling my light start to dim, I turned to the woman who embodied walk through life with a smile on your face and a prayer on your lips lifestyle. My mom shifted my focus to the upcoming holiday when we would be reunited, using our collective power to pray, asking God to give me the grace needed to navigate this minefield. Little did I know that video call would be the last time I would see her alive. God had plans of taking her to a home without pain and full of love with him. The kitchen, I was told, was my baby. Malnourished with massive deficiencies, I nursed this baby back to health. Proud to introduce new combos and flavors, battling the venom that was being drip-fed to the littles through loud exclamations of the need for more normal food. Dripping with disdain, this poison spread from class to class, turning all curiosity into constant rejection. My mom died 63 years old, 2 weeks and 2 days after I sung her happy birthday for the last time. No time to grieve or mourn my shattered heart. PTO was all used up. Through my grief, her last words echoed in my head. Do what you can in excellence. Plan for what you can't efficiently. And always remember, God gave you many talents to get it with your hands. So I went back to work and clutched my kitchen baby, trying to breathe my mom's last words of life into life here. Crying into my sink, praying that my grief doesn't seep through my food, disrupting the natural exchange of energy and nourishment that good food brings. The farce of 2 strategy meetings had me blinded and disorientated. Through a late-term abortion, my kitchen baby was ripped from me. The blinding lights had me reeling. My request for a mental health break got praises for listening to my body, but was the last bead in a chain of twisted and misleading truths and lies that led to the unceremonious end of my tenure. The pain and emptiness of the abortion slow danced with my grief and anger. Racial implications served on a silver platter. Rest granted for some, but not for you. Work till you drop, pour till you're empty, then we'll throw you out like the trash we've always seen. Through therapy and EMRD, working through my pain, I found my voice again. I control my narrative and define my experience. Prayer and meditation helped me combine the fires that burn within to submit them as an offering to the refiner. Psalms 94:17. Unless the Lord had helped me, I would soon have settled into the silence of the grave. I wanna be tried by fire, purified. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. You're a fire, the refiner. I wanna be consumed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aurora! The next introduction I'm going to make is what the t-shirt of the next speaker says. Suicide is a housing issue. Suicide is an economic issue. Suicide is a food desert issue. Suicide is an education issue. And suicide is a healthcare issue. By way of that introduction, Jay Helms.
Thank you. Can folks hear me okay? Sweet. All right, so my name is Jay. I go by they, them pronouns. For those who don't know me, I work as Director of Training and Advocacy at Pathways Vermont. And as part of that role, I provide training through Vermont's Peer Workforce Development Initiative. That's the job that I do. I'm also a person with lived experience. I was suicidal for many years. Still every now and then I think about suicide. It's not something that just stopped happening. The world is really difficult to live in. And I'm able to speak here today partly because I too benefited from peer support. I have trained people in peer support. I've worked in peer support. I've also benefited from it. Several years ago, when I was having a particularly tough time and trying to figure out how to stay alive, I stayed for almost 2 weeks at Alyssum, a peer respite, the only current peer respite in the state of Vermont. That we're working to increase that. And staying at Alyssum really saved my life. Some of the folks who supported me are here today, actually, so thank you so much for being here. Thanks all of you for being here. I am also a writer, so I'm going to read a poem in just a minute. I've written a lot of poems about being suicidal and figuring out how to stay alive, so that's one of the poems I'm going to read. And as I read this poem, I'd also like to dedicate it to the memory of my great-grandmother, who was in and out of psychiatric institutions in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and died by suicide herself in the early 80s. I think she had a really tough fucking life. She was doing the best that she could. It's really, really hard to be a person. This poem is about that. In these poems, the poems I was writing about trying not to die, I called them Apocalypse, because that just makes sense. So this is Apocalypse number 417. Here we are again. I dance, I cry, the planet explodes. I used to think my body was a broken machine. The gardener told me over and over my bones weren't permanent, though I grew attached to them all the same. What is love if not an apocalypse? Took my ponderings to the trees and only got more questions. Not sure what my final form will be, though I'm certain now this isn't it. Vacillating between ice and recklessness. I am terrified of my own wonder. I run toward Blaze, toward him, toward them, toward anything that keeps this self from splintering further. The thing I don't tell hardly anyone is that I stopped being one person years ago. The four of us a constant swirl. Inexorable joy, relentless melancholy, immutable chaos, and the gardener returned. It was always going to end this way, the world beginning and beginning and beginning, the clang, clang, clang as the horses near, my emotions corporeal, unboxed. This body couldn't hold us all. I had to build some more. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jay. Speaking of Alyssum, our next speaker is an employee at Alyssum, Serenity Lohr. Thank you.
Hello. So as she said, my name is Serenity Lohr. I'm here today to share a little bit about Alyssum and about myself. Many of you may have heard of Alyssum. We're the only completely peer-run respite in our little green state. I've been an employee at Alyssum for 7 years. When I walked through that door for my first interview, it was the most unique experience I've ever had. Gloria and I sat in the conference room. Instead of telling her my professional qualifications, I was telling her my life story and my lived experience. I've never had a boss tell me that they thought it was great that I have an eating disorder. At the time, I was the only person on staff that did, and she was excited about this because I would be able to relate with our guests who went through the same thing. I've experienced watching my mother go in and out of psych wards since I could remember. I knew when she was manic, I knew when she was in psychosis. I knew when she had convinced the psych ward staff that she was better when she wasn't. I could tell just by looking in her eyes which road we were going down. Growing up with a mother labeled as mentally ill was something I was used to. It was an experience not many of my peers were going through, or at least had talked about. At age 12, I was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder and put on lithium. Within the year, the doctor said, "Oops, sorry," and took me off. I dealt with serious depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and a potentially deadly eating disorder at a young age. I've been in therapy since I was 2. I'm actually Clara Martin Center's longest running client, yet they still refuse to give me an award, not even a plaque. Being at Alyssum as an employee has changed my life and the way I look at our mental health system. Apart from being the only fully peer-run crisis respite and hospital diversion program in the state of Vermont, we're a 2-bed house placed on the most beautiful land in Rochester. We're free to all Vermonters, 18 and up, that meet our eligibility criteria. When I say Alyssum is a gem in the hidden heart of our state, I do not say it lightly. I've witnessed some of the most beautiful transformations in our guests and staff alike. People who have been abused by the system on top of their own trauma, people who didn't know they could have a say in their own health and wellness, people who were written off, seen as mad, seen as not capable of change. We've seen people blossom right before us because Alyssum was able to be a catalyst for their own self-direction. When people are given the space and the time to be seen, when we hold space for each other without judgment, magic happens. Healing can truly begin. It also helps that we have a mini poodle, Prince, formerly known as the Artist. Maybe you've heard of him. He is here today. I truly am so grateful to work at Alyssum and to work with such an amazing team. All of us on the Alyssum team come with a background of lived experience. Some of us have been hospitalized. Some of us have endured trauma that society may deem unspeakable. But that's what makes us different. We speak it. We shed light into the darkness so we can begin to heal. And we simply assist our guests in their own journey towards healing. Thank you, Mad Pride, for having us. We have a table right over there. We don't have a sign, unfortunately. That was a afterthought. But come see us. We have stuff to give out, and we also have a website. We're on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you so much, Serenity. Thank you, everyone. We have one more speaker and then our keynote and then some music. So the next speaker is Betsy Hoekstra.
Hello. Okay. Friends, coworkers, and fellows in the fight against psychiatric injustice and social stigma, I am so honored to be speaking to you today. 5 years ago, I was living in Oregon, halfway through a philosophy degree, and I didn't know where I was headed. I was overwhelmed with a directionless sense of possibility when my mom gifted me a book called Let Your Life Speak. The message of this book was that we all have an idea of who we are, and at the start of our lives especially, we have many overflowing ideas of who we might be. But it's the events of our lives, both the choices we make and the things that just happen to us, which ultimately reveal a purposeful direction to our place in the world. In December 2019, a really strange thing happened to me. A thing that was beautiful and amazing and transformative and a little freaky and entirely unprecedented. It goes by many, many names, but I guess I'm gonna settle on, it was a spiritual emergence turned spiritual emergency, which was fascinating me, but worrying my loved ones until I ended up involuntarily hospitalized for 2 weeks. Many aspects of my hospitalization felt profoundly wrong to me. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, so I'm not gonna laundry list how fucked up that was, but as a weathered explorer of my own consciousness, I was not afraid but intrigued by the shifts happening within me. The world had suddenly become imbued with spiritual meaning, and I was excited to be seeing beyond the veil. And yet, here I ended up being told that something was extremely wrong with me, that I was sick, permanently sick, in a way that I would have to correct with medication for the rest of my life. But I was incredibly lucky because I entered the hospital with a real foundation to question how I was treated. I had studied philosophy of science, so I understood that science happens within a social context, and that facts often begin as beliefs, which research then works to justify. In a society that overwhelmingly fears psychosis, many facts have been funded in the service of that fear and the interests that prey upon it. I felt that the deterministic, reductionistic, and fear-based, exclusively biomedical explanation of my doctor was not and could not possibly be the only way to understand what was happening to me. And I feared this narrative suffocating my own. After my release, research led me to the Mad in America website, which led me to the concept of soteria, a pilot program from the 1960s to 80s that aimed to see if what we call psychosis could be treated not chemically, but environmentally through social support and community first, where people could be free to have the experiences they were having and make sense of it together. I wished that such a thing still existed, imagining how different the response to my psychosis could have been. This seed of discontent with the way things are developed into my senior thesis project, exploring concepts of mental illness and explaining how philosophy of science can be used to deconstruct scientific beliefs that contribute to psychiatric injustice. And as I closed in on the end of my college years, I discovered that there was indeed a single soteria program here in the United States, in Burlington, Vermont. Little hand for that. And my life spoke. Suddenly a path emerged by which I could take this unexpected, uncanny, strange, traumatic, transformative experience of madness and join with others to provide an alternative to traumatic carceral hospitalizations. It has been such a gift to find belonging in Vermont's truly radical and cutting-edge community of advocates against psychiatric harm. I am so proud of us and the work that we're doing, and every day at Soteria, I see the evidence that this approach makes a meaningful difference in people's lives. We do not need to be afraid of ourselves. We all grow when we embrace the unknowing together. I'm really excited to announce that Pathways is soon opening a new 2-bed peer respite and a new Soteria building with a larger capacity in a new location slated to open fall 2025. And with eyes to the future, I also want to acknowledge the past. The remarkable array of person-centered services operating in Vermont today is the work of innumerable survivors who have boldly committed their lives to the vision of a world where we are all granted the dignity to be who we are, and where the sacredness of self-understanding is protected and respected. For many of us in this line of work, our lives spoke. We didn't choose to be initiated into this world, into lived knowledge and experience of the harms that come at the hands of this society's attitudes and institutions. But we choose to remain in this work, drawing close to the suffering to create spaces where the truth we all hold can be spoken. We are working in a broken system and realistically only able to serve a fraction of those impacted by the failures of our culture. Even so, I really feel that every person, every individual that comes through the doors, whether at Soteria, Alyssum, on the support line, any difference that we can make, all the force against this stuff, any person who can say, hey, you literally don't have to fear what's happening to you right now. And it's okay if you do, but that's not the rule. You don't have to actually monitor yourself. You can just know who you are. And there are people, actually an army of people, who will support you in finding another way. And those differences in each one, I feel, is kind of the whole universe. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. In the appreciation of what Betsy just said about community, and because we have some time in the schedule, I want to encourage us to take 4 to 7 minutes to connect with the people around us. Maybe people that you don't know who are sitting near you, maybe people you've known for a long time, and share any kind of connection and appreciation with folks sitting near you that you can. In approximately 4 to 7 minutes, I will call us back and we will welcome our keynote speaker and listen to some music and close it out. But just a few minutes of community time for this beautiful group of people who are working so hard to connect and share. See you in a few. All right. Time for community and connection is over. Just kidding. It continues forever, but come back anyway. This is a seed. We are starting. We are growing. I want to invite you all to come gather back around as we receive our keynote speaker. Hailing from Minneapolis, a psych survivor and writer who now works in the mental health field. Please help me welcome Sasha Warren.
Hello. Hi everyone, my name's Sasha. Like I said, I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm not going to talk too much about me in my talk, so if you like to talk and you want to learn more about me or what I'm about, I helped to start the Twin Cities, that is Minneapolis-St. Paul Hearing Voices Network group, the chapter of the ISPS, International Society for Social Psychological Approaches to Psychosis, and then a new group called the Network of Alternatives to Psychiatry. I could tell people about that. If you're interested, come just talk to me. I am beyond grateful to have been invited to this year's Mad Pride in Vermont. I've been aware of all types of things going on around here for a long time, for many years, and just been very curious to finally make it out, meet some people, get the scoop, and learn about what's going on. And it's really inspiring and it's really cool. So I'm very, very grateful to have been invited to talk. Normally, at a talk like this, I would talk about psychiatry, the history of psychiatry, the politics of psychiatry. And if you do want to learn more about that, my takes on psychiatry, I've got a book that I put out this year in March with Common Notions called Storming Bedlam, Madness, Utopia, and Revolt. And it's kind of a history of psychiatry and radical movements in or against psychiatry. So I have 10 copies of these. If you're interested, come find me later. But I wanted to take the unique opportunity of speaking at a Mad Pride event, not to talk about psychiatry for once, and to talk about madness and the history of madness and some ideas of madness. So unfortunately, I'm going to be doing a kind of poetic, historical thing. I really hope it doesn't bore you. I'll try to keep it as tight as possibly can. I'm not known for being tight in my speeches, but I'm going to really try this time. So many people have theories about what madness is, what causes madness, or how it should be treated in society. But these theories don't tell us really anything about what madness itself is. Since this is a Mad Pride event, I'm going to talk about the idea or the experience of madness in itself, specifically something I call the madness of madness. I think everybody here is going to be aware of madness when it takes the form of illness. Since this is the dominant form in which it appears today, there's no real reason to belabor this form at an event like this. People are already kind of aware, a lot of people have already spoken to some of the outcomes of what happens when you think about madness as illness. It's certainly one of the forms, but I don't think it's an adequate container nor a character mask for madness in itself. Mental illness has its own reality, its own concepts, its own history, but it in no way captures the entirety of what madness is or has been. If madness at times appears as illness, it's necessary to ask how this word "as" works in a category that seems to lack any semblance of stable presence. In any case, madness has appeared as many other things throughout its recorded history, which is many, many thousands of years old, maybe as old as writing and oral traditions itself. An Arabic proverb tells us, "Al-junun funun," madness is of many kinds. What is madness? Asks Najib Mahfouz. It appears to be a mysterious condition, he wrote, much like life and death. You can learn a lot about it when you look at it from the outside, but as for its interior, its core, it remains a suppressed secret. In some traditions, madness appears as a form of privileged knowledge or a higher ethics. According to Islamic hadith, the mad person is not subject to the punishments outlined in the Quran. God and his recording angels do not even record the mad person's deeds as they do for the rest of us. In the Christian tradition, Brother Juniper, the foolish follower of St. Francis, to name just one of many, would regularly, in an act of seeming madness, strip all his clothes off his back to give them to the poor or to any person who asked. He would joyfully make himself a laughingstock if it helped another person, because humility was its own reward. And in this, he's following a grand tradition in Christianity where Christ and his followers are figured as mad in some way. But was this madness itself or just evidence of a different or even a higher ethics? A similar relationship is mirrored in the medieval royal courts from Europe to India. The fool was the one who was permitted to speak the truth because they were considered totally outside all social hierarchies and status. As Abdullah ibn Mubarak said of the most famous Arabic fool, Bulul, he said, the madman knows his own soul. True discourse has to be heard from a madman. Sometimes the mad appear as what Bonaventure and Dicung calls the ultra-sane, the saner than sane who aren't afraid to speak the truth or do what needs to be done in a truly mad world. So maybe madness simply names those ideas or people that are too early or too late for their own time, or otherwise out of sync. Take the example of what is considered the most bizarre and famous text in the history of psychosis memoirs, Daniel Paul Schraber's Memoirs of My Nervous Illness. It's a great book, if only because it's the focus of Freud's only engagement with the study of psychosis. So this is one of the reasons why it's so famous. Schraber, an appeals court judge living in Saxony, believed he had become aware of what he called the order of the world, a secret nerve language inaccessible to other people, and that people around him were turning into what he called fleetingly improvised men. He also believed he was in the process of transforming into a woman. would wear women's clothes in private at night and longed to experience the pleasure of being a woman. When he also began to act in increasingly strange ways, like bellowing at the sun, talking about strange gods in public, wearing women's clothes at night, he was promptly locked up, where he was beaten, force-fed, and confined on and off for the rest of his life, about 13 years. Schreiber sued his psychiatrist on the grounds that the psychiatrist had no right to keep him, for it was his understanding that one could hold any beliefs you want, especially religious beliefs, no matter how bizarre, and that this is not sufficient grounds for incarceration. He wrote, "The medical expert only became acquainted with the pathological shell, as I would like to call it, which concealed my true spiritual life." Interestingly enough, the court actually agreed. What the court really had an issue with was the impossible idea that Schreiber could possibly identify with womanhood in any sense. This, too, was the crux of the forensic psychiatrist argument in the trial. To transform into a woman was impossible, and the sign of an irredeemable loss of reason. The boundaries between mad and sane, what I'm getting at here, are historically unstable and rapidly shift as certain behaviors or beliefs become normal, or at least normal within a certain sphere or lifestyle. Until just recently, gender fluidity, transitions, hormone experimentations, queer position, and love would have been castigated by capitalist states as truly insane. And of course, in most of the world, still to this day, it still is. But I think it's telling that Schreiber's belief that he, or perhaps we should say she, though the language wasn't really there at the time, was becoming a woman, and the pleasure that she took in this was considered the solid evidence of delusional thinking. And this would now be considered a marginal, perhaps even acceptable, in the absence of other behaviors, form of gender expression. I think if Schreiber was hospitalized in Burlington today, the report would probably consist of a few fragmentary sentences about the presence of auditory hallucinations or delusional beliefs with a prescription for Abilify or something like that. I think it's really doubtful that the psychiatrist would put much emphasis or pay much attention to the gender-bending aspects. In Korea, the term schizophrenia has been abandoned by many psychiatrists. When translated directly into Korean as split brain, that's the direct translation of the Greek, some patients distressingly believed they had a psychological or a physiological or a physical condition affecting the actual structure of their brain. They thought they were telling them their brain was split in half. The term they introduced to replace it is this curious term that translates to attunement disorder. The word literally refers to the tuning of strings, like on a guitar, and is metaphorically intended to indicate that the brain's wiring is dysfunctional or off in some way. This word, I think, this reading opens up the possibility that those labeled such are not tuned incorrectly, but just differently. A guitar, for instance, has many possible tunings, each of which allow the player to access sequences of chords or sounds that might be extremely difficult or even impossible in the standard E through E tuning. So what if the so-called attunement disorder is just a difference of tuning? Maybe madness is better thought of as the name for everybody who swims against the current or is out of sync or out of time. Schreiber's primary symptom, the desire to experiment with gender, was in this light simply asynchronous, out of touch, too early. It's hard not to think from time to time, living with the knowledge we have about impending waves of climate disaster and watching people go about their daily lives as if nothing was wrong, that the people today who catastrophize and despair about the state of the world is that they aren't catastrophizing enough. Humanity seems due for a massive dramatic cry where we can acknowledge how bad things have really gotten. I wonder how long it will take those who called Aaron Bushnell mad, deranged, sick, after he committed himself to the most extreme martyrdom in the name of innocence in Gaza to realize that he was actually right. That's right. Even if we believe there may have been a more strategic course of action, or that such an act in itself is mad, whatever, he was one of the few people who recognized the gravity of our situation today. One thing we can say for certain is that madness isn't anything. That is, it isn't a trait, a quality, or a character type. It can't be, for as soon as we freeze it, objectify it, into something we hold or turn into our hands and look at, it ceases to be mad at all, but is something really quite reasonable. In medieval Islamic biographies and in the Talmud, it is said that lunatics usually live outside the city, generally in the cemetery or the uninhabitable wasteland. I think what this points to is that madness gravitates towards the liminal, those border spaces at the edge of the comprehensible and the knowable, speaking about that which makes the sane shiver with fear and discomfort. Madness must not only be other than what exists, it must be other than what it is at any time. I call this the madness of madness, for it must always be in motion. The one thing mad authors share in common, the fact of being silenced when revealed in someone else's truth, is exactly that which is erased by tending to them carefully, by recognizing their sufferings as real, their joys as real, their revelation is real. And by recognizing them so, the listener puts their own reality in question and acknowledges its incompleteness. I call this the madness of madness, and it eludes every possible image we create to represent it. In the encounter between madness and normality, 3 possible outcomes emerge. 1, the madness is snuffed out, segregated, silenced, ridiculed, crushed, and scattered into the winds. This is the most common outcome. In this case, madness simply reappears elsewhere like one of the Hydra's many heads. 2nd, the madness is examined, thought through, and explained in detail by attending to the biography, historical, spiritual, or philosophical grounds, and then it doesn't seem so mad at all. In this case, madness is recognized as in some sense rational. 3, the norm or sanity can't survive the encounter with madness and changes forever. Whatever norm arises out of this process will undoubtedly be different from the pre-existing one, and in its complete relationship with itself. Madness in itself, i.e. the madness of madness, names a process or an event that takes place between people. The madness of madness is part of what it means to be human, but that does not change the fact that some of us are mad. To be mad means at least 2 things. 1, to have intimate knowledge of violently becoming other than what you are. It means living and dying in the scorching heat of 1,000 summers in the course of a single day, or seeing the world with all its color and texture suddenly lose its pallor, cast solely in the light of the dim bulb of the deepest sadness. 2nd, to be mad means knowing what it feels like to be thrust onto a stage alone, sort of like this. Floodlights beaming, searching for the exit while the audience laughs and jeers. Whoever survives such an encounter with their convictions and sensitivities intact has passed their own dark night of the soul. Seldom is a communion with God the reward for this ordeal, but the mad person walks away with a greater sense of the weight of things, of the miracle that is human connection, of the pettiness that informs our judgment of others, and of the struggles necessary to bring ideas to fruition, or of the gift of our capacity to love one another. We cannot dispense with, segregate, or destroy madness. Without it, we would be forever trapped in a holding pattern. If we fail to take madness seriously and those cast aside as mad, we shut our eyes to the call to transform ourselves and the world. To do so would be to willingly relinquish the complexity of the task of living with others. We need to learn to live better with others because we can't live a single day alone. Madness disturbs because it reminds us of our fragility of our thought and our way of life and our dependence on others. Jordan Neely's senseless death at the hands of a white vigilante protecting society is as much an image of our relationship to madness as the mass imprisonment and abuse of the mad in hospitals and prisons. That the mere appearance of madness, especially black madness or public displays of suffering, fill people with such dread and aggression that they lash out or demand the authorities remove such a person from the street or from life itself is a sign of an extreme separation from the ones positioned as constitutionally other. It's the symptom of a failed society, a society that needs replacing, as Frantz Fanon put it. Psychiatry's abolition could only come about by creating a world where offloading the mad into their care is no longer necessary or desirable. We are all both ourselves and other, since we are alive today, but we will die down the line, or perhaps tomorrow. Since we esteem and worship youth, but that pain in your back, like the one I felt this morning, reminds you that you're becoming old every single day. Since we believe we are capable, but are now or will one day be disabled. Since we all think we're so smart, but we have days or years when we act utterly foolishly. And we all think we're right about something else that somebody considers completely mad. We can't cast aside those we think are too old, too foolish, too disabled, too mad, because we are all, or we contain all of these things. To refuse this recognition would mean continuing down the path of hubris and self-destruction. We must enthusiastically embrace madness, for this means embracing the fractures and the ruptures that constitute the conditions of our lives and our cohabitation with one another in this finite and fragile journey on Earth. Thank you.
It means nothing, nothing, nothing. It means nothing now. Well, I was born can see we are living in a police state, and they are slowly taking our rights away. Got us all so ignorant. Stand up, you don't know how we'll uphold the Constitution. It means nothing, nothing, nothing. It means nothing now. I just got this guitar, so this is my first time playing this guitar. So I feel like it's a good moment for this guitar. This is called If It Wasn't Broken. So is the drum that brings me rhythm, but I've got none. How would you know you had a heart if it wasn't broken? If it wasn't broken. Your job, so you lost all faith in the one you got. Came to me for refuge, and I've got none. How would you know you had a heart if it wasn't broken? If it wasn't broken. Was worth the world and more. That's why you cared. That's what you stand for. Came to me for refuge. I've got none. Wilda told me that she likes this song of mine called Have Another Pill. So I want to play that song. And it's about my first time in the psych ward when I was 13. But I guess I went in and out of jail and psych wards till I was like 26, I think. But only because I think I figured out how to, I guess like somebody was saying earlier, like how to fake it or I know what to say kind of. And I never tell doctors or police what I'm feeling like or anything. And this song is called Have Another Pill. Time around the sun, I'm about to know when I was on the run. Dropped out of school to get high and have fun. Then I met a man with a badge and a gun. He said, do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. Do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill, they locked me up for half a year. I watched myself disappear. My mom would visit once a week and dry my tears. Then she'd hold me close and she'd whisper in my ear, do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. Do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. I couldn't tell night from day, day from night. There were windows and I couldn't go outside. Next promised me she'd let me out to see the light. On the day my answers to her questions were right. Do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. Do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. Do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. Do you know what diet is? Do you know what president is? How do you feel? Have another pill. Have another pill. Turn my pain into my pride. Turn my pain into my pride. Didn't want the air till my lungs were full of smoke. Don't want your thoughts, don't need your prayer. I want action, not just hope. I've been screaming at the wall, make it fall on my own. To get a trick, don't get help told. Bring the firewood back home. home. I must rise. Turn the flame that burns inside. Turn my pain into my pride. Gotta walk 'cause I got no right. From the ashes I must rise. Turn the flame that burns inside. Turn my pain into my pride. 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 I think that I have 2 more songs, but I don't have a concept of time. I don't know. So 2, I think is short. We're out of time.
Play all day till dark!
Alright. Well, this song is called No Reason. You keep. Don't change the fact that you're a beast. Better than most, to say the least. Your perfect man-made masterpiece. You're an angel, but you're a demon. I got no rhyme. Got no reason to know you well, but I can bet there's some things that you regret. The ones you love most, you upset. You haven't got forgiveness yet, 'cause you're an angel. Got no reason. Bust your back trying to behave. To your best self you are a slave. You can't sleep in the bed And this is my last song. It's called Home. Thanks for having me here. Don't you work yourself to death. Take a break from the man that had to catch your breath today. Be the last you know. Help us how you ought to go. No pain could ever buy your soul, ever make you whole. Don't you fake no smile if it ain't true. Credit said I'm shit here, see, but you're the only you today. Be the last you know. Help us how you ought to go. No pain could ever buy your soul, ever make you whole. Don't you worry, child. Don't hold no stress. Don't let nothing steal your smile. This world's a mess today. Be the last you know. Help us how you ought to go. No pain could ever buy your soul, ever make you whole. Don't you waste it, babe. Don't waste no time. Protect your heart and soul. Protect your mind today. Be the last you know. Help us how you ought to go. No pain could ever buy your soul, ever make you whole. Today could be the last you know. Help us how you ought to go. No pain could ever buy your soul.
Lastly, I want to announce that next year's 2025 Vermont Mad Pride has already been scheduled. Get out those phone calendars. Woo, woo. Saturday, July 12th. We will reconvene for another amazing episode of the show of our life that is Vermont Mad Pride. If you want info at Mad Pride Vermont, spelled out, don't abbreviate it.org is how to get it. Thank you so much to everyone who made this day happen, who was here. I hope your heart is half as filled as mine has been by this day. Thank you so much. That's it. Thank you, everyone.